Second Amendment. Today I'm going to talk about the Second Amendment. It is a very hot topic in our country, and both political parties viewed it and have debated it for years now. I'm going to talk about the history of the Second Amendment. I'm also going to talk about the traditional viewpoint and the modern viewpoint. The traditional viewpoint holds that every citizen has a right to own a firearm no matter what type. The modern viewpoint of today says that every citizen does not have a right to own a firearm, but that the government can control what type of firearm a citizen is able to possess. Now the Second Amendment simply states, the well-related militia being necessary to secure a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now let's talk about the history of the Second Amendment. That was not what the original idea of the Second Amendment was to be. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed is the very first statement James Madison wrote in his original idea. But in the ratified version, as we know it to be now, is at the very last part of the Second Amendment. Now let's look at two words, security and infringed. Merriam-Webster's 4th edition states security to be the state of feeling of being or feeling secure. Protection, safeguard. Michael Agnes, 2006, Access Today. Merriam-Webster's 4th edition of infringed means to break law or an agreement, violate. Michael Agnes, 2006, Access Today. If we put the word violate into where infringe is, we simply get shall not be infringed, shall not be violated. In the Civil War time, a general under the General Benjamin F. Butler was the only general during the Civil War to purchase the very first machine gun, the Gatling gun, with his own money. He got 12 of them for his troops to use during the brutal siege of Petersburg, Virginia. The U.S. did not adopt the Gatling gun until later in 1866. Since it was newer and was not adequately tested during the Civil War. History.com, 2021, Access Today. Now let's talk about the traditional viewpoint and what they say about the Second Amendment. The Merriam-Webster's 4th edition states militia to mean any military force, later any army composed of citizens rather than professional soldiers. Non-professional soldiers, actually. Michael Agnes, 2006, Access Today. Today, of course, militia would include women and people of all races. Volka, 2007, Access Today. Joe Tremisi, 2020, Access Today, states, when the government bans common firearms or makes their purchase unnecessarily difficult for law-abiding citizens, that's infringement. When exorbitant fees or taxes are levied against firearms and ammunition, that's infringement. When firearm-related businesses are overregulated and heavily taxed, that's infringement. When law-abiding citizens are severely restricted from having a firearm, that's infringement. In other words, the traditional constitutional viewpoint holds infringement to literalness, being that the government, because of the government wanting to control what people can own of a firearm, so they take it literally, infringe literally. The traditional viewpoint also brings up the Gatling gun. If General Butler was able to purchase the first ever machine gun, then that would mean the Second Amendment does not mean the militia, but that every citizen has a right to own a firearm no matter what type. Now let's look at the modern viewpoint. The modern viewpoint and what they say about the Second Amendment. History.com states the right of the people to bear arms should only be given to organized groups, the National Guard. History.com, 2021. The modern viewpoint simply states that militias the National Guard took over for state militias. Since 1903, we have not had state militias. So the constitutional right to own a firearm does not exist. Max, 2013. Access Today. The Modern Viewpoint continues to state that since the Second Amendment is vague, the modern times needs to be reworded so that automatics, semi-automatics, pump action, firearms, pistols should be prohibited, but that citizens can own a single loaded firearm. Summer, Ball, and Smith, 2018. The Department of Justice under President Bush in 1992 viewed the Second Amendment to be the National Guard replace the militias, and that people can still own firearms, but that if they can regulate fishing, they can control and regulate firearms as well. Charles P. Coots, 1992, Access Today. Many people interpret it differently. Which side is correct? We will never know what our forefathers were trying to say under the Second Amendment. The traditional viewpoint holds that every citizen has a right to own a firearm, does not matter what type. The modern viewpoint holds that every citizen has a right to own a firearm, but that the government can maintain and control what type of firearm a citizen is able to possess.